Yeah, this happened. You crazy kids, you've done it again. Over 100 players piled into Beyond All Reason, and what followed was pure, glorious madness. Another epic King of the Hill showdown. Defenders dug in, peasants swarming from absolutely every angle, and somewhere in the middle of it all, victory, desperation, and a whole lot of pure RTS fun. For those of you who clicked the video and were wondering what am I looking at, this is Beyond All Reason. Possibly the greatest RTS we have had the privilege of experiencing. Legend says that it is the spiritual successor of Total Annihilation, a game that dates all the way back to 1997. I'm Twig, joined by Pradith and Tank Tom. This is Beyond All Reason like you've never seen it before. Well, maybe. Strap in. After the 10-minute no rush time expires, things get wild fast.
G'day everyone, and what you're seeing right now is King of the Hill, where we chuck a bunch of well-hardened veterans into the middle of the map, and then we surround them with as many peasants as we possibly can. Now, how is it possible for just a handful of players to beat so many? Well, they get a bonus. In this case, it is a plus 50%, which means that they're going to get 1.5 times resources. And that does exponentially scale when it comes to conversion if you've played the game before. Looking at the inside, we do have some of the regulars in here, particularly Cookie Destroyer, who has been well known to throw lots of T3 towards the middle of the match. Now, how is it that the Kings are going to win? Well, we want to see a half-decent eco out of them from the start. That means each player getting to at least one fusion by that 10-minute mark before the no-rush ends. And around the outsides, how are the peasants going to win? There are essentially three types of positions. You've got these high ground spots in the corners. These guys need to work together to grab themselves an early T2 lab and distribute their T2, then go into some eco and support the fronts as needed. Then you've got the players directly in front of the ramps. These guys need to either build up enough forces to push in and keep the Kings from coming up their ramp, or to build enough defenses to do the same thing. My preference is always offense, because it keeps the Kings on the back foot. And then you have all of the other players. They need to support their frontliners and try to balance out a bit of defense, a bit of eco, and some additional offensive units. In particular, if you don't have a lane, try to get some units to go at that 10-minute mark.
So you're probably wondering, for those who haven't seen Beyond All Reason before, how is this sort of game possible? Well, it's got a custom engine, like Spring. It's called a Spring based. I think it's called a Spring based custom engine. It runs off of a heavily modified open source engine, allowing for these huge battles with hundreds, even thousands of units without melting your PC. There's multi-threading and GPU based simulation. So unlike most RTS games, bar, as we call it, Beyond All Reason, uses your GPU to help which helps simulate the unit behavior and the physics. It allows for truly massive games, so like you can play 32 versus 32, or in this case 9 versus 100 without crashing. So this isn't just a meme, it's how bar's actually designed to run. There's also advanced pathfinding for units, and even server-based replay, so you can go check out what you've done, done wrong, done right, and one of the best ways to learn.
Commander self-destructed.
For those of you that have played StarCraft 2, you'll know how wonderfully optimized that game is, provided that both players stick to their 200 unit cap. But as soon as you start branching out in some of those custom games, it slows down, if anyone's a fan of those ones. But in Beyond All Reason, you find that because it's not restricted to one CPU core, which is evidently the age of StarCraft 2, bar manages all of this by balancing out the performance between your CPU, which is traditionally used for all of your unit behaviors, with the GPU power that's been growing at a greater rate than CPUs in the last couple of years. Though if anyone's out there's got an X3D, you'll probably laugh at me saying that no, my CPU is far better than yours.
I tell you what's better, what I love about this game is it just keeps getting better. It's crowd built from the ground up. So I promise you, if you haven't tried this game before and you decide to install it, which did I mention, it's absolutely free. This game is free. After a couple games, you will be hooked, like we were a while back.
Commander
Just to be clear, we're not sponsored Twig is just really bad at saying he likes a game without sounding like it's a sponsored bit.
100% true.
All right, let's
cool
have a quick
things-
look in at what is going on. Tank Tom, you're about to say something about Cookie Destroyer?
Well, I was going to mention that the cool thing is that because it's largely community
Commander
developed at the moment, things like the
self-destructed.
lava is stuff that one of the community members has developed and submitted to the moderators, and then it got included into the game relatively recently.
Yeah, so you can set the times that the lava falls or rises. In this case, we have a fall. We've got the lava here so that the what we call the peasants cannot rush up into the king's lane too early, because there is a lot of them. And one of the best tactics is to just rush them. APM stall these kings is definitely the best tactic. And yeah, it's not limited to those sorts of things. There's so many different things, user interfaces, mapping that the community gets on board with and improves the game. 4 and a bit minutes left of the 10-minute no rush, and yeah, looking at Cookie Destroyer, who definitely knows what they're doing, getting out T2, plenty of build power, plenty of eco happening, going for win to start with that 45% bonus, and just off of how many wins that 22 win, they're able to fund T2, and this will probably be enough to see it. Yeah, wow, we're going straight into an advanced fusion, not even a fusion, so skipping that. Almost enough metal to fund that entire APHIS, which is 9,700 metal, so we'll probably get about 60% of the way there. And by the time we see some of this other stuff reclaimed, the storages, even some of the wind, maybe some of the constructors, that's probably enough metal to get that up well before the 10-minute time expires.
Considering that Cookie Destroyer has an energy income of around about 700 to 900, that means the optimal number of build turrets sits around that 20 mark, and since it's sitting under that 20, it means that it means that so long as you look at that metal as an indicator, if that's ticking down, you're building at a decent rate. It does look like it's got about 1:30 on there. You could definitely afford to add another row of 3 build turrets, but after that, I reckon it will balance out quite nicely, or throw some of the additional build power, such as that builder, onto it. But Cookie Destroyer's main focus right now seems to be getting those advanced metal extractors up, and that does actually make sense, because with all 8 of those, that's going to be an increase from 1.9 per to 7.6 per, and 50% on top of that, so it's a lot of metal income. The APHIS will be more, but getting these up is much quicker and progressive compared to getting the APHIS up, which is just one big chunk of time and energy going into something that won't repay itself for a little while.
Interesting,
looking around the map.
Duxie over here is getting up a whole bunch of T1 energy converters, knowing that Cookie Destroyer is about to overflow metal energy to his team, so he's going to benefit from that. As you were saying, looking around the map, I'm just going to look down to this bottom right, because
looking around the map, many of the kings have managed to grab themselves a fusion at this stage, which means that they're running slightly ahead of the eco player, but the eco player's boom is going to be massive because of that fusion. When it comes to the peasant side of thing, we do have a fusion in the bottom right hand corner, as well as one of the a group of three players, all communist ecoing, to grab themselves an APHIS. In the left-hand side, much slower on bottom left-hand side, much slower on the eco. No fusions as of yet. Top left, one fusion is going down, but it is only at 9% with a very long build time. Not a lot of eco being thrown into that one. And it is the top right where multiple players are banding together to grab those fusions, 4 coming down, but none of them yet built.
So probably the bottom right is your best example of good communism happening. These, what is this, 3 or 4 players, 3 players here, managing to get up the first fusion and already close to getting the second fusion. I don't think they're going for any units by the 10-minute mark, and that's because there are so many units between them and the kings. You can see here a bunch of blue and purple all over the screen protecting them, and they'll probably be able to greed their way to some T2 armies to come up maybe 5 or so minutes after the 10-minute rush expires.
But speaking of units, if you bandbox your way across the map, anything that turns white is a combat unit. We see only 2 out of the kings at this point in the game, but one of the very interesting places to look at is the top middle and top right hand side, where we've got a large tick with whistlers, and we also have a huge amount of incisors. I believe that is Classic, who is known for running in with those big incisor balls at the 10-minute mark. Looking at what they're going to have to fight, not a lot in the way, so that could be quite a devastating attack at that 10-minute mark. Any amount of damage you do to the kings at the 10-minute mark is huge, because it prevents them from scaling or attacking and dealing a lot of damage. There are some very vulnerable ramps for the peasants, but it doesn't look like any king's attacks lined up at them. As we're about to tick over to that 10-minute mark, what do you guys reckon is going to be the result?
Well, I did lose to less incisors than this once upon a time, to a player named X Factor Live. He threw, I think, about 52 at me and took out my base. But he's the only person attacking up here, so I don't know if he's going to get the whole way through. I would have liked to see all these whistlers and ticks to go through at the same time.
Does look like Jags are being pulled and Fiends being built to try to deal with this. Does look like Cookie Destroyer is very on point with what's going on and has pushed the units to where they need to go for defense. There's still plenty of incisors, so lots of possibility right here, but with those Jags and the Fiends in the mix, I think it's going to be reasonably limited. They are going down very fast, down to 20 from 50 already. Those T2 units just so strong at cleaning up, and unfortunately for Classic, that push has been pulled back and his team didn't quite coordinate in time while those units were pulled away. The large attack on the next ramp just did not happen, and now the Jags are going to get it back in time to try and fight this one off. Classic going with the comm inside or into the red base, try and grab what they can. Does manage to destroy the pulsar, but has been cleaned up. Is about to be cleaned up by the Jags.
Nice attempt, if only the teammates all rushed at the same time. We could have seen an easy break. You can even see this green player over here still alive with some of those units, so if they attacked at the same time, that could have been definitely enough to distract all the Jags that went over to save the day in that red lane.
Couple of other attacks have happened around the map with a few of the ramps pushing down, but those were definitely the biggest ones to be focused on. We do, however, have a Tsar pushing up in the bottom of the map right now. It is taking a lot of damage from those from the Wardens and from that Dragon's Maw, but manages to escape just in time. We'll see if that becomes a big factor. Apple Arm is a regular with AllReasonNoLogic, and we do know that he knows exactly how to play these ones out, so we'll see if that Tsar Rush is going to be part of the new meta. Looking around at what is going on, the corners, what the bottom right corner is just starting to get some Sheldons out to support. I suspect they'll switch back to Eco after that point. The Sheldons, though, going to be quite devastating, considering that these ticks are just starting to push into the King's base.
What's happening here is one player has taken control of the lab, choosing what they want to micro and build, and the other players with the extreme eco, you can see 1200 mil in the bank there.
Ticks running through pink space at the moment, doing a lot of damage, but unfortunately they are clumping up inside of next to a lot of units, which means that they are taking damage as all of the buildings explode. That damage definitely didn't allow them to do more because of losing so many on the way in. That one Fiend cleaning them up nicely. Still good attack, and it has meant that the defenses that were there were pulled back, and now we've got units marching in to pink. We have both of the fronts pushed quite nicely with a Tremor on the high ground raining fire down, the Tsar back in action after being healed, and the other ramp dealing with just lots of spam units.
Nicely done here, coordinated attacks out of multiple players at the same time. We did have a commander fall in this lane, and as a result the Kings have decided, let's just try and push through here. If all that was in that area were a few maces you saw earlier, maybe there'll be no defenses, but they're about to be met by a bunch of LLTs, Dragon's Claws and Beamers, so running away.
This is what I was talking about finding that nice little balance. You look at the defenses here. Half of them have been built by the player who's been going ticks just behind the ramp, and the other half have been built by the yellow player next to them, so sharing the load. Looking
at that player view, you can just see there how many of the ramps are undiscovered for the Kings yet. Just send a handful of ticks up those ramps and you'll be able to see which ones are the least defended.
Does look like Apple Arm has managed to be very successful with that Tsar moving in. is fighting a very weird opponent for the Tsar, which is the Mammoth, but with the Tremor backup, the Banisher backup, and all those T1 units, doing a really good job of pushing in and breaking in slowly. It's going to need some sort of reaction out
More
of
ticks getting
players to help Pink get back into the game.
If only these were being microed, you want to go for those converters, and I think we will see those pop. Yep, bang, bang, bang. Unfortunately, I probably would have gone for the advanced converters, but not to worry, that is still a good amount of damage, taking away about 10 metal per second out of those T1 converters from the Pink player, who has lost all of their build power. All they've got is a few twitches, and I love what Cookie Destroyer is doing, something that we haven't seen in many King of the Hills. Building armies of fiends with twitches and then handing them out to the player that needs them the most. They did it to the red player earlier, and now they've done it to the pink player. So really nice reaction out of Cookie Destroyer there.
Great way of not having to invest and build up that lab and then eat it to grab the next APHIS. Hopefully it will be online with T3 nice and soon. One thing that I do want to add, if you're wondering why there isn't much spam out of the Kings at any given time, there is a unit limit of about 10,000 for the entire game, and that is split equally amongst players, which means that the Kings do only have a few hundred units to work with.
I have heard,
buildings. Everything you build is part of that amount.
Yeah.
Looking to the top right, green is managing to sneak a few units in. They have managed to push in, but sprinters are going to clean this one up, I think. Yep.
And for those
but lots of pressure over here.
There is an error with the replays where people see different colours, so purple on this screen.
Yes. But with the Arbiters and the Sheldons now starting to fight their way in with plenty of T1 support, this should be a nice siege towards one of the Kings. Just remember, if a King does fall, it is a huge problem because you end up losing 1/9 of the entire team, at least until they rebuild and get back into it. Big risky with this King building their eco so far on the front line. I do not love seeing those fusions and those APHIS so close to the shell to being able to be shelled.
Yeah, and the next
but it doesn't look like it's going to survive
out
on a fraction of damage, with a fraction of health left.
Got to keep an eye on this side of the map because those fusions, they're not healing with no construction turrets going down, and each one that gets built prioritizes building of the next one, and they're not getting healed in between, so 40% left on those fusions.
And there is the main T2 part of that force has escaped. The peasant force in that corner has escaped, which means that that attack was essentially costless for the peasants team. Looking around the map, continued pressure in at the bottom half of the map, as we do have as those beachheads that were established just continue to be pushed in. No additional run-bys happening just yet, but if they do identify the opportunity, I reckon we'll see another good one soon when those mammoths go down.
Yeah,
but with the fiends coming in, that should clean it up.
Taking out one of the most expensive T2 units, if not the most expensive T2 unit. How much does a mammoth cost? No idea. A lot more
2,200, I think.
Yeah, ticks something like 20.
Because of the surround bonus and the relatively high DPS of a tick, they trade ludicrously well. If you build Razorback, which is a very, very effective small unit destroyer, T3 small unit destroyer on the from Armada, if you build the same metal value in ticks, the ticks will win, which is quite an interesting thing to know.
Big push of maces and thugs, usually enemies, but this time friends. Equivalent units for Armada and Cortex pushing up the left hand side, pushing into a bunch of grunts. There is a Scorpion that does work, manages to take out each one of those in 2 shots, but that will probably go down. Is there going to be a reaction out of this team with this ball of Sheldons on the north pipping off the wind? I really like this distraction with the T1, damage being done with the T2, but it is a little
and now
bit
moving behind it as well, though I would like to see them firing. But with all those fiends there, you actually want to be backing out those. There's enough fiends to get on top of that ball of Sheldons.
Jumping to the right hand side because I am seeing ticks getting through to the energy conversion, and there it goes, and then all that build power re-destroyed. You'd think you'd learn, build that eco behind those 2 starting mexes, and look at this, we've actually got a bunch of oh, this is going to be interesting. I wonder what they're going to do with this many.
Oh, just, you know,
Interesting.
shut down a couple of those units. Oh, 1% on the next fusion.
Actually turning off the fusion, the energy income, so that this player is unable to build. And are we going to see enough damage done here that more of these are going to go down? If only these
I
shelters were
hope
pushing.
so. For the peasants' sake, they've done very well on this attack, and the continuous building forward, that's a big mistake by the king. You have to make sure that you're building far enough back that you can actually get those units out, maxed on resource, maxed on metal, maxed on energy. If those labs and that build power had been built a little bit further back, they would be able to produce something to at least defend this. As crazy as it sounds with everything coming through, a thing which would defend this very, very well is just grunts or pawns. Does look like the next attack is incoming. A couple of ticks, a couple of pawns, and incidental fire by the demon takes out that 1% left on the fusion.
Yikes.
The APHIS that was complete still up, but the other one has been taken down. Snipers doing big damage to those demons as they walk in now, but the sniper's not microed very well, so they are getting killed by that demon. Only 3 survive the first one, and potentially less after the fact.
Talking ticks. Welder's a very good option to shut these down, so there are a few there. Are they going to eye off this? Maybe, maybe not. I want to see this fusion go down. Only 7% left on it. A couple of these ticks, 6%, demon doing more damage. You just need to be parking these ticks one at a time. I actually saw Tank Tom in a game recently using ticks to destroy an enemy army just through self-damage of the Janus. They can be used very sneakily.
We do have a
Damage
Marauder
goes
Rush
away.
happening on the other side of the map right now. It has made it into the King's base, but with some really good Tiger micro, their damage is absolutely minimal, and they have been cleaned up without managing to take anything down. With all of these construction turrets built so close by, it barely takes anything to detonate them all. Really good try out of the peasants there. Just got to make sure you get that target fire in, because it does not take too much to pop a build field.
Army gathering on the left hand side. I wouldn't mind seeing Kings pushing out. We've only seen action from the peasants, continuous action from the peasants pushing into the middle of the map. Well, there are so many of them, so that's why. 100 players versus 9 players for micro. Maybe on the right hand side we're going to see the first demons push up into the hills.
One of the things that is quite interesting to note, the Kings are getting their offense on in the bottom right-hand corner. We have a large number of tremors that are just firing onto that high ground. The just sheer volume of fire is punching straight through the shield up there, and we're going to have some Karganeths heading up to clean up. I actually really like this strategy.
Commander
Clear out most
destroyed.
of the things with the tremors, then clean it up with the Kargis. However, a couple of very strong units put up there, as well as some good defenses, killing most of the, or at least mostly killing the Kargis by the time they get up there. Those fat boys doing work, but in particular that Bulwark doing a great job. One of the things that you always want to consider when you're doing an attack with T3 is what cheaper units can you put in front of it. In this case, based on the faction, it would almost certainly be some termites. They're still expensive, but I would
Commander
rather the
destroyed.
termites took the hit from the fat boy and from the Bulwark than the Karganeths.
These tremors really
Interestingly, if all
raining
the
down.
players grabbed just 1 or 2 of these tremors and they were distributed around, there's very little that I reckon could stop them from just raining hell down on all of the high ground, all the Bulwark high ground positions
Commander destroyed.
around the map. But it does look like pink is taking umbrage with all of those tremors. Oh, sorry, looks like purple on your screen is taking umbrage with all those tremors and heading in with a large number of Razorbacks to try and clean them up. Those shields not doing anything to stop the Razorbacks. That is a big, hefty loss. Tremors, I think, are 1850 or thereabouts. At least they were at one point. And being taken out for very, very little by those Razorbacks, but the Razorbacks pushing in a little bit too deep and facing the brunt of everything that is there. That surround bonus
If
helping taking them down very, very
only
quickly.
there was a bit of spam helping those Razorbacks, I reckon they could have got
Always spam.
so much further, especially because there is one Titan there. If only one player supplied spam at the same time, that would have made a massive difference to how effective those were. Obviously did their job taking out those tremors, but not getting much further than that, leaving a lot of metal for reclaim on the middle of the map. In fact, there is 29,000 sitting right there. I mean, there is metal everywhere.
Commander destroyed.
Does look like we have a hound push coming in from the bottom side of the map. The ticks are running a little bit far behind, but if they can make it to the middle together, then I reckon that'll be a nice little push through. Unfortunately, though, those hounds just ran in. They didn't use their amazing skirmishing powers, and so they were taken out very quickly, all for the cost of 1 tremor. That demon doing a very nice job of cleaning up the ticks, but the ticks are looking for that run by potential. Thankfully, plenty here to clean that one up.
Where is the next avenue of attack? We just saw 2 demons taken out by a nice D-gun on the right hand side, but you can just see Cookie Destroyer amassing an absolute ton of demons in the middle of the map. There are currently 13 sitting there. If they just push through, that could spell trouble for the peasants. We now have catapults on the left hand side doing what we saw tremors do on the bottom of the map. Similar range, actually probably bigger range, a little bit more DPS as well. They are doing work at taking out all of these towers, a bit of the eco, and they are very susceptible though to any fast moving units because there is nothing in front of them. These arbiters going to take fire upon them. They will do a lot of damage if they connect these arbiters, because catapults only about 6,500 health.
That's why you've got to keep them nice and defended, but man, do they do what they're supposed to do well. That one volley that went into the pack of Sheldons and Arbiters doing massive damage, but unfortunately not skirmishing with them, and it does look like we have a big attack coming on the top right-hand side with a large number of Shivas and Marauders backed up with spam making their way in. There is plenty here to defend this, with so many snipers as well as spam coming through to take those shots, and welders to stop the peasant spam from making its way in. But this is a very large force to be trying to push in with, and we'll see exactly how deep it manages to go. With how clustered all of the King's eco is, it will only take a little bit to make it on in, and with the brown player only running off of 3 fusions, their ability to build units is going to be quite slow to try and defend this. It's going to be down to some of the other players helping out.
Up over to the left where we've got some more demons pushing through now, getting in front of those catapults, taking out a lot of the smaller units, but these mammoths just take so much damage before going down and turning these T3 units around. Great answer for T3 is those mammoths.
Especially with the snipers on the high ground that were just chunking into those demons. The mammoths doing a decent job, but it really is the snipers with the surround bonus that are just absolutely massing damage on them. Unfortunately, unable to push up there. Again, you've got to have that spam. The demons were a really good idea for cleaning things out.
Demons,
speaking of demons, indeed,
there's a lot of demons. There are a lot of commanders there too, taking out 2 already. But what this player is doing is they're actually using the attack ground command while moving forward, just to keep those fires going, and you can see taking the commanders out without them being in range of the demon. Now there are not many commanders here to defend, only a couple nearby. I think this spells doom for the first of our peasants on the map.
And this is all it does take, 1 ramp to fall, and you manage to get massive damage done.
Commander destroyed.
Yeah, once you can make it up those ramps, when you no longer have to fight through the defenses, the economy's basically sitting ducks.
And just quite the sitting duck they are, with so much firepower raining on. The DPS of the demons is just insane, and they're just clearing all of this out.
Commander has died.
Fusions, wins, Aphis going down, and the nice thing is that there's just so much exposed eco down here. In the top side, we see all of that cluster of fusions, though there does seem to be enough sniper defenses to deal with all that, but on the bottom side we just saw a massive explosion as all of that frontline eco was taken out. T3 lab just being taken out. It's very hard to build in these frontline. It's very hard to build an eco in these frontline spots, knowing that no matter what happens, you've got a big potential
Titan
problem.
on the field. The peasants have managed to get 1 single Titan into the pink base, and it's still got 40% of its health.
As
That
long as
laser,
its target priority is right,
yeah.
that is the end of the pink player, at least for now. They need to be given something to get back into the game, and then you definitely want to be building a little bit further back so that you have a bit more time to get up and running. Unfortunately, just not a quick enough reaction out of the rest of the team, and the Titan just so chonky and unable to be taken down. This is going to be a big problem for the Kings, because we did already have one of the players losing most of their base, only just getting back into it now, and then another one going down, which means the Kings really cannot bring to bear the forces they need to push up these ramps. Only one area falling, and we need to see a heck of a lot more than that.
Just when we thought the Kings were showing promising signs, that is a player down, and luckily Cookie Destroyer with those demons to come down and plug that hole. I don't know who's got the advantage at the moment. Both teams essentially holding strong. About 5-6 peasants falling on the right hand side. Kings losing 1. Maybe that's roughly an equivalent trade. I don't know, but like we've
I would have given the Kings the advantage if they'd managed to hold that pink base, because it means with a huge chunk of the front line falling, there's the ability to swing back up that those already cleared ramps and continue the push around the map. But now that the offensive force is tied up defending that position, I think it's starting to fall slightly in the Peasants' favor.
Shout out to Leo Base from our clan, just taking out 4 Titans with 1 commander without hardly taking damage himself.
And this is one of the hardest things that the Kings have to deal with. It's the fact that there are still 70 odd comms on the Peasant team, and if they are spread nicely through the ramps with that limited ability to build spam units in front of the T3, they can just get so much value in. One of the things which we're hoping, which we've heard and we're hoping to see change in the future, where there is a ability just to change the unit cap to be split between teams evenly as compared to split between players evenly.
No doubt. Strong push there on the left hand side with the behemoth. Probably the best counter to that is going to be commanders.
But a massive push on the top right hand side with lots of units that have managed to push all the way towards the base, but not quite making it. And you can see all of the carnage left on the ground from what looked to be about 4 demons and about 10 razorbacks.
Yikes.
There's been good consistent pressure coming out of that top side. That top and right hand side have been putting pressure on those Kings consistently. You can see all of those wreckages there from the fights that have been happening.
What it
and
is
it's great to see that they're
roles.
working together.
Yeah, spot on.
Just
Unlike
remember,
some
if
other
you
ramps, there's players doing individual roles. There's someone doing spam, someone doing T2, someone doing T3. Other roles, other ramps we've just seen players going solo, Leroy style, into the abyss of the Kings.
Just remember, if you are playing as the Peasants, everyone does have a role to fill if you want to win this one. You have to give your eco players enough time to build up that T3 for the big push in. You've got to give your mid-tier players long enough to build up those stacks of units that can support the spam players, and then you can keep those Kings inside that ring. If the Kings are not leaving the ring, then they are in trouble. But you know for a fact that the Kings are going to scale like crazy, because that plus 50% and the fact that it's all rammed into 9 players, and you're going to end up with forces of massive amounts of T3 units.
Hello, Demon on the
start
right hand
working
side.
their way up the map.
Is it going to get to this Aphis that never just shot? Never got healed. I'm
That Aphis
distracted
is
on
just
the
in
bottom of
such
the
a
map.
risky position, but it does look like the bottom of the map, the Kings are getting up into this area yet again. Many comms trying to defend this, but with so much T3, the damage that's just going down on them is crazy. But as you saw there, that one D-gun wrecking 2 juggernauts, I think it was, or maybe just the one with the secondary explosion being from the comm. But still behind that, we do have the Titans marching on in. And now that most of the defenses have been cleared and comms reasonably far out of the way, the sheer density of the base means that so much damage can be done just from any of these ramps falling. And again, as I was saying before, had these units not been used to defend pink, these potentially there already could have been more damage dealt from the top side down. This corner could be looking at getting cleared at this point, which if the kings manage to grab one whole corner, it frees up multiple kings to swing onto the next areas.
I like the splitsies happening there. I think this red base is about to fall. Almost.
One more volley.
Just a tiny bit more. Does look like that is going to be enough, though. There we go. That red base is completely fallen, and units walking up, and nice and split now onto that right side. Even though there will be comms there to deal with it, there is a lot of damage that is going to be laid down. Titan defense force holding it nice and strong against them, but there is plenty still coming. Looking to the top of the map, we have another big push coming in. There is a behemoth coming out of one ramp, as well as a large force of demons making their way through, and these are getting nice and deep into the base before being taken out. Just a tiny bit further and it would take out the spam. If the spam goes down, then this entire section will potentially fall because the T3 units are slow in coming.
Catapult's getting ever so close to getting to that build power, just a little bit further forward, and then an area command. Can they actually see? Quick check on prior view. Yeah, we're starting to see some of that build power, so if we can attack that ground, that's going to do some work.
Behemoth's such a good unit for pushing in. You know that they're going to be slow, you know that they're going to be easily degunnable, but unlike the peasants, the kings only have limited comms, which means that if you push a behemoth down every ramp, it's going to be very hard for the kings to deal with.
What's great here is we've got 3 ramps being pushed so heavily. We've got mammoths at the top. We've got a massive T2 army here, so that's distracting everything away from this one behemoth, which is almost within range of this build power. Quicker destroyer with the second commander there, waiting, ready for a D-gun, just wanting to get in range. Is this enough to get through?
Yeah, the king's not being able to stop dealing with any of those ramps, because if any of them make it through, there's going to be some huge chain reactions of the eco, and the comeback isn't going to be available.
Very, very scary position to be for the kings, and when they're doing so well on the push as well, they've just with that massive breakout that Cookie Destroyer did on the bottom of the map, there is just so much potential as that pink army is building and ready to go up another ramp.
The build power goes down, and
oh no, that's the spam.
This behemoth is so close to the fusions.
One more shot and the fusions will go down, and then it just has to get a tiny bit further to get those APHIS. If those APHIS go down, they're going to chain react. There is just so much density in this base.
But what we're seeing here, we saw this APHIS finally pop, and this player has learnt, and they've got a backup economy behind, but these SARs are on the roll. One more shot. Ew.
And that is the bottom half of the king's economy essentially toast. And the big scary is that that means also all of those resources were being used for defense down the bottom, and now there is nothing to clean up so much more of what's coming in. Yeah. I reckon that might have been the decisive move that moves this towards a peasant victory, despite all the damage that's been done.
But this is just I don't know if this is reconcilable, the damage that was just done, and there goes another base as we saw that. I think that was ticks, I missed it. Didn't see any big units in the base.
Ticks are incredibly powerful just because of their speed. You only have to kill conversions.
Oh. Little bit bigger than that. Little juggernauts go brrr.
Yep, it was just on a move command into that position and just finally got destroyed, but it was already far too deep for that to be a sustainable fix.
The writing was on the wall. A valiant effort from the Kings. I actually thought they had it when the Jugs and Titans pushed through the bottom. Cookie Destroyer coming up there with a lot of awards. Obviously, you get that privilege as the player in the middle that gets to eco a little bit harder through the early stages of the game. You cannot read those statistics because, my goodness, there are a lot of you rolling off the page. Over 100 players in the game. I think it was 109. Massive effort on these ones. So we'll just check out the charts instead. You really see
the big thing to remember while we're looking at those charts is that these games swing on a dime. You can say you can look at it and you can say, oh, this team is very much so in the lead, or that team is very much so in the lead. However, when it comes down to it, if a single corner breaks for the Peasants, it frees up 25% of the team to move in and attack somewhere else. An additional 25% of a team coming down on you is huge. Similarly, if the Peasants break a single king, the potential for chain reacting and for getting deep into the base is there as well. So it's even games where we've thought that they've been right on the edge for one team, we've seen a great comeback.
nicely done to the green player in this one. Up there with the kings on damage dealt, but you can see how dominant the kings are when there's so few of them with such big ecos, getting a lot of damage done across the Peasants, but not quite enough in this one. People, these games are getting massive every week. Sundays, AllReasonNoLogic host these. Jump in the game, jump on Twitch, jump on YouTube. We share these live, and you get a live cast out of Pradith on the night. I do join in, so does Tank Tom on some of those, but we do get the privilege of playing in these as well. So if you want to check that out, jump on Sundays, jump on the Discord, link in the description below to see more about the times that they are on.
Thanks everyone for watching. Like, subscribe, comment, all that good stuff, and we will catch you in the next one.
See ya.